From climbing to the top due to sheer strength, to dropping out of college super early, here are 8 of the youngest champions in UFC history. Starting off with Jon Jones. That's a name everyone knows by now. It's hard not to. He's 36 now, but he was very young when he became a champion. Not gonna lie, his age kinda threw me off because he was just 23 years old. I bet all of y'all in your early 20s are shocked. So far, the youngest champion of all time title belongs to this guy. He won the light heavyweight championship at UFC 128 on the 9th of March, way back in 2011. He beat Mauricio Rua, and at the time, he was just 3 years into his pro career. You'd think that a guy like Jon Bones Jones would have faced some trouble in MMA because of his lanky build. But that's actually his strength. Longer reach, agile moves, that's actually how he earned his nickname from high school. The fighter was a wrestler back then, along with playing American football. Being skinny never stopped him. Fun fact, he even dropped out of college to pursue a career in MMA. Even better, he was studying criminal justice. Can you imagine this guy as a lawyer? The next guy is someone whose path to champion wasn't as easy as Jones's. Here's a guy you can't forget. Jose Aldo. Jr. is an apt nickname for him, right? Don't be fooled, the man is a beast. You know how it's good to start him out young? Well, Aldo started training in Brazil when he was just 14 years old. What was I doing at 14? I can't even remember. Before he joined the UFC, he gathered up tons of experience. Mind you, this was all before he turned 18. He became a professional MMA fighter when he was just 17, winning fights in WEC. He even became the featherweight champ 2 times there. Wham bam, thank you ma'am. But that wasn't it. Oh, that was just the beginning. Then 2010 rolled along, and WEC and UFC merged, and he kept fighting for the top. Sure enough, the merge meant that at the time, he was the youngest inaugural featherweight champion at 24 years and 2 months. He was the youngest champion for just a year. Then Jon Jones came along and bagged the title. Still, it definitely counts. While he held the title for a year, someone else let it slip out of his grasp way too soon. It's actually a shame. I'm talking about Josh Barnett. Famously known as the War Master, he was so close. College wasn't in the picture for this one. First of all, he trained in judo and wrestling in high school, then off he went to professional MMA. Admirable, not gonna lie. He joined the UFC in 2001, and after a few stumbles, he won against Bobby Hoffman. One big problem though, he tested positive for banned substances right after the fight. After that, he won against Randy Couture in 2002 when he was 24 years and 4 months old. Things were all good and well until he tested positive for substances again after this fight. It's safe to say he didn't hold the heavyweight champion title for long after that. But before Josh the War Master Barnett, there was another dude who won things fair and clean. He even went international. Carlos Newton. Yes, he's Canadian, but that's not the only notable thing about him. There isn't much about his educational background, but it looks like he's devoted his entire life to fighting. Props to him. He trained at Warrior MMA in Ontario till he turned pro at 19. Once that was done, he became the Vale Tudo at Japan World Championship. See what I mean by going international? The guy's got skills. At UFC 31, he was up against Pat Miletich. Yes, the welterweight champion. If you've seen it, you know it was a crazy fight. He bagged the title champion with a building choke submission in the 3rd round at the age of 24 years and 8 months. Now that I've caught you up on the 2000s, let me go back even further to the 90s. This was back when the weight classes weren't reformed. Frank Shamrock. Everyone remembers how he beat Kevin Jackson in 1997. I mean, you just can't forget about it. The 90s were full of life for the MMA scene, and just because Shamrock's record got beat through time doesn't make it less awesome. So his win against Jackson also made him light heavyweight champion, youngest at the time at just 25 years old. What's really cool is that at the time, it was actually considered middleweight. The classes were changed later that year. Oh well, cool UFC fact. He was also a super experienced guy before he got to that point. He won 22 pro fights and had a solid record of 14-7-1. So yes, that's why he got the chance for a title shot when he made his UFC debut. It was a good decision, honestly, because he went on to win it consecutively 4 times. Those 4 years, he held the throne. That's more than Aldo and Newton, so big ups to him. But sometimes, victory stories come with great sadness, too. You won't believe what happened to this next guy, Frank Mir. Like Shamrock, he was also 25. Something about the early 20s, y'all. Like the rest, he always had a passion for mixed martial arts. His BJJ instructor was the one who convinced him to go to the UFC too. Anyway, he made his debut in 2001, and boy, was it a wild ride. He won 5 out of 6 of his first fights. That's pretty commendable, if I say so myself. This got him a title shot against Tim Sylvia, and he literally snapped the guy's arm with an armbar in the first round. Naturally, he became the heavyweight champion at UFC 48, making him one of the youngest to ever do it. But the title wasn't for long. Sadly, he suffered a bike accident, which rendered him unable to fight for a long time. This, in turn, stripped him of the title. Still, it was an amazing feat. Speaking of amazing feats, Josh Barnett could have had it all. Luckily, another fighter took over his opponent in a gnarly way. Rico Suave Rodriguez. That nickname is very different from what he did to Randy Couture. His amazing run at Pride in Japan in 2001 got him a spot at the UFC, and the rest was history. Quite literally. So after Barnett was out of the picture, Couture was raking it in, win after win, until Rodriguez came along. He completely controlled the guy during the fight, strike after strike, and he was just 1 month over 25 at the time. Eventually, Randy had to submit because Rico's elbow was directly in his eye and it hurt too much. What's more, he submitted verbally. Imagine being one of the youngest heavyweight champs and forcing the Randy Couture to admit defeat. Sadly, it was a one-time thing. The fighter lost his mojo afterward because he lost the next 3 fights and just never returned. Another special case has got to be the non-Brazilian legend who slayed it at the World Jiu-Jitsu Championship, BJ Penn. His win actually got the attention of the UFC. He joined when he was 22, and in his second title shot against Caol Uno, he emerged victorious. Well, he made Matt Hughes submit by putting him in a rear-naked chokehold. That too, in the first round. There you have it. He became the UFC welterweight champion just a month after turning 25. Not bad, considering the margin is 23-25. Well, those were all the youngest champions in UFC history. See you next time.